As the Western-backed military operation in Mosul intensifies, officials in Europe are warning that it might backfire with an increased terror threat on the continent. The UK's International Development Minister said that as ISIL gets squeezed in the Middle East, the group's presence will be felt elsewhere, including both in Europe and America. And the EU's law enforcement agency Europol echoed his sentiments, claiming that further military pressure on the terrorist group could provoke a deadly response. Well, here are some of the latest pictures of Mosul's outskirts obtained by our Abruptly video news agency. The blackened skies you see are caused by ISIL fighters burning oil and sulfur factories as they fled. In a bid to create a smokescreen against potential bombers, and there are fears that this tactic could lead to an environmental disaster with dozens of facilities already set ablaze by the terrorists. Now, the operation has been going on for more than a week, and according to the mainstream media, it's been a success.
We heard from the Prime Minister this morning. He said things were going faster than it's expected.
So they are making significant progress.
ISIS is really about to receive a body blow.
And however, the UN hasn't been so upbeat, calling the potential consequences of the operation, quote, humanitarian catastrophe.
Offensive to retake Mosul could produce a humanitarian catastrophe, resulting in one of the largest man-made displacement crises in recent years.
Former CIA official Ray McGovern thinks the situation made worse by the fact some key U.S. politicians are simply out of touch.
What we have here are people who are not, frankly, very competent. I had a chance to observe Secretary John Kerry, the Secretary of State, in person. He said something which is archetypical of the way he and our Defense Minister, Ash Carter, operate. He said, Syria is as complicated as anything I've ever done in my public life.
Syria is as complicated as anything I've ever seen in public life, in the sense that there are probably about 6 wars or so going on at the same time. So it's very, very difficult to be able to align forces.
Well, you know, that just indicates to me that Secretary doesn't know what's going on, and neither does Ashton Carter. Now, Carter, for example, he's trying to persuade the Iraqis to allow the Turks to help out in retaking Mosul. Now, Mosul is considered by the Turks their territory. If Carter thinks that he can persuade the people in Baghdad, the Shia there who are running things, to accept a Turkish presence in Mosul, he's crazy.
As our guest mentioned, the relations between the parties involved in the Mosul operation are complicated, especially among some American allies in the region. This chart shows just how complex the web of friend and foe has become in the Iraqi city. In addition, troubling consequences of the Western-backed operations in both Iraq and Syria remain underreported in the mainstream media, such as the alleged coalition strike on Friday, which hit a funeral procession at a shrine in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk, and it killed scores of civilians, and many of them women and children, leaving dozens more injured. Now, these are the pictures of the aftermath, and Russia's defense ministry says the procession was most likely mistaken for terrorists by coalition forces, but added no ISIL fighters in the area of the strike.
Such deadly strikes against civilian settlements, which have all the signs of committing war crimes, are becoming an almost daily routine for international coalition aviation. Too often, weddings, funerals, hospitals, police stations and humanitarian convoys fall under the strikes of coalition planes.
In a statement, the coalition said it, quote, determined definitely that its planes hadn't conducted the airstrike with reported civilian casualties. And when it comes to Washington and the mainstream media's approach to wars in Syria and Iraq, things are not always as they seem.